Hello everyone, this is Rick and welcome to Astral Club. I thought we'd take a break from the Astral Projection course this week to review an experience that I have never shared before. We're going to call this one Astral Forbidden Temple Demon. But before we get into this experience of mine, I just want to thank everyone. The subscriber count is growing, and if you haven't subscribed yet, why don't you hit that subscribe button? It it helps the channel and it doesn't hurt you, and you'll be notified whenever we get a new video. Okay, let's talk about a question that I had from one of our Astral Club members. His name is Sam Magum, and he asked about, he's heard that through this channel and others that sight is the predominant sense when you travel on the astral. Yet there's been reports of people experiencing other senses, such as sound or taste. And he was wondering what I had to say about that. Now, this is my theory. Sight is the predominant sense on the astral. However, I want you right now to think about the smell of someone who is cutting a lemon. It's a fresh lemon. They're cutting into it. Can you smell that smell? If you're like me, you can smell a little bit of a lemon right now. Or cut an orange right now. A nice fresh juicy orange, and then take a slice and put it in your mouth. If you're like me, I think you can probably taste a little bit of orange right now. Now, obviously, there's no lemon, most likely, or orange sitting in the room there with you. So what's at work here? Well, it's your memory, and especially when you're dealing with very, very vivid memories, very strong tastes and smells. They become a part of you and are very real to you in your memory, such that you can even taste that orange or smell that lemon right now. When you're on the astral, your memories are still there, and if anything, they're given even more energy. So, were you to materialize an astral lemon or orange, it's very possible that you might bite into that orange or what have you and taste it just like you would on the physical, because you still have that memory. I mean, if you can taste that orange right now, just thinking about it, then certainly why wouldn't you be able to do that on the astral? So that's my explanation for the presence of some of these different senses on the astral. Okay, so the main topic here, this experience occurred to me about 5 years ago now, and I had been reading up, for some morbid reason, on the history of human sacrifice, and I decided to explore that topic and see if I could find a temple somewhere where that had been practiced, and to see if there was any residual energies or what that might feel like. Now, human sacrifice has, unfortunately, a very long history with humanity. It was practiced by many human societies beginning in prehistoric times. Now, luckily, by the Iron Age, the first millennium BC, religion started developing a bit, and human sacrifices became less and less. And in fact, by the time we got to the Roman period, it was very much looked down upon as a barbaric situation. However, everybody shares in the blame for this particular practice. I know many people have heard of the Aztec sacrifices, where military captives that the Aztecs took would be taken to the top of one of their pyramids and their living heart pulled out of their chest, and that sometimes hundreds or even thousands of these types of sacrifices would be made to try to propitiate the god or gods of the Aztecs. But just about every other nation or area of the world that we think of also has a history. Japan, for instance, has something they call a hitobashira, or human pillar, in which maidens were buried alive at the base of some constructions to protect the buildings against disasters. Also, I had read years ago in Japan, there was a superstition that if you drowned a maiden in a river, you would propitiate the god or goddess of that river, and it would then be safe to build a bridge. Many societies had beliefs in the afterlife, and they believed that the afterlife would be very much the same as this life. So, if you were a rich or important person, well, you would still need to have company and attendants and slaves and wives and what have you. So, when this important person died, whether they be a Mongol or a Scythian or an early Egyptian, various Mesoamerican chiefs, they would take most of their households and they take them with them to the next world, i.e., that means that they would be entombed along with this dead important person so they could serve them in the afterlife. Now, in some of these cultures, at least the servant or what have you was killed ahead of time. Sometimes they're buried alive. So obviously it's a pretty awful situation no matter how you slice it. Even going back to the biblical times, Abraham was ordered by Yahweh, his God, to take his only son Isaac and offer him as a burnt sacrifice. Now, obviously Abraham was very grieved by this order, but he wasn't completely surprised by it either, because sacrifices were a big part of the primitive Hebrews, and certainly human sacrifices had occurred in that past as well. So luckily, the Yahweh called it off at the last minute and said it was just a very cruel test. But it did happen. According to Greek and Roman sources, the Phoenicians and the Carthaginians sacrificed infants to their gods. And I know during the last Punic War, when the Romans were surrounding the last Carthaginian city, that infants were supposedly offered as burnt sacrifices to Baal, so that some way this god would help them avoid complete destruction. Of course, it didn't work. The ancient Romans reported to us, and some people say it was just anti-Celtic propaganda by the Romans, but the Romans said that the reason they had all the Druids killed off is that these Druids held human sacrifices, whereby criminals would be kept and gathered throughout the year, and then they would be placed into a wicker man and then burned alive as a way to propitiate the various gods of the woods and the Celts. In India, human sacrifice is mainly known as Narabali. Nara meaning human and Bali means sacrifice. It takes place, or took place, in some parts of India, mostly to find lost treasure. And there's now an anti-superstition and black magic act that was passed some time ago in the Indian government to prevent this particularly horrible practice. And I guess there were still 3 cases of human sacrifice from 2003 to 2013. So it still happens in some of the more poor sections of India today. All of this surrounds the pagan belief that there are these gods or demons out there that need to be satisfied by the sacrificing of humans. Whether it be the blood or the spirit, something about that power is conveyed to these beings, and that in return, these beings would offer a variety of boons or give their human servants a variety of powers, whether it be psychic powers or earthly riches, political power, you name it. So this particular practice it was very widespread throughout humanity. And I could go on and on with different examples, but I think you get the idea behind all of this. So, we have human sacrifice occurring throughout history in just about every human society you can name. And there's a bunch more that I didn't get into because we'd be taking up the whole video just talking about history. Okay, so perhaps now you understand my basic interest, because I have an interest not only in astral projection, but also in humans and why we do the things that we do. And especially when we're pressed to our edge, when the chips are down and there's an emergency or something is absolutely wanted or needed, what are we willing to do? And I think we've seen in the past, we're willing to do quite a lot. Now we don't do human sacrifices anymore, but we still have war. Okay, so let me talk about this particular experience. And as I said, it happened about 5 years ago. And I had been curious about the topic of human sacrifice. So when I left my body, I concentrated on trying to find a temple where human sacrifice had occurred, because I wanted to experience that and see what it felt like, if anything. I didn't know. So I concentrated on this, and I felt this guidance occurred, and I just felt this sense of movement. And then I found myself in the astral in a extremely dense tropical forest. And I could see right ahead of me there was this small stone structure. It wasn't huge. I'd say it was about 40 feet by 30 feet, 1,200 square feet, or around 110 square meters. The temple itself was almost completely covered in vines. There was a doorway entrance. It was open, but it was also densely covered with vines. I could see that there were carvings underneath the vines, and I could see teeny little bits of color, red, a little bit of green that had been on these carvings, but it had long ago, I'm sure they were very colorful, but it had chipped off and fallen down. And now they're all virtually covered by these dense vines. Obviously, this was a lost and forgotten temple. The only way I got in is by raising my vibrations slightly and then going through the doorway, which is through these covering vines, to get to the inside. The inside itself was fairly barren. There was an elevated slab off to the left of the entranceway, and the rest was just a barren stone temple. There was some obviously vines and other things that had crept in and were all over the floor, and so I opened myself up slightly because I was pretty closed down, probably because of the topic. And then that's when I felt it touch me. I noticed off to the corner there was a dense darkness. It was kind of amorphous, but it slowly put forth a tentacle and started looking a little bit like a snake. And this tentacle touched me. And when it did, it felt like a shock. And I felt it, and I think it felt it too, and it withdrew very quickly, like it had touched a hot iron. And it kind of recoiled a bit. I could feel, I didn't want to send out my entire consciousness, but I sent out a little coil of my own, and I could sense pure evil. And this is something that we throw around that term quite a bit in our human lives. Oh, that person's pure evil. But I think for the most part, there's good in everyone. At least that's my belief. However, this thing was one dense ball of pure viciousness and hate. And it was old, very old. And it was hungry, which is a strange thing to say about an entity that doesn't have a physical body. But I could tell that it must have dwelt there as the demon of this temple. And that while its power felt low now, I had a quick visualization of it becoming drunk on the life energies spilled by the blood sacrifices that had taken place here. And that it still occupied this place, hungry, hoping for its priests to return to offer these sacrifices again. And at the same time, though, it was trapped here. So even a small part of me, even though I recoiled at this being, a small part of me still felt pity because it had trapped itself here in this barren stone temple, long forgotten by humanity and by its priests and the people who had been sacrificed here, long forgotten. And who knows what his name had been or what names he had had. But yet he still was here. But my pity started turning pretty quickly because he must have gotten a sense of me as well, because the snake form started turning into a large spider. Now, I have a bit of arachnophobia. Now, not enough to run away from a small spider. I'll still crush it. But we have a bit of an agreement, arachnids and I. I leave them alone and they leave me alone. But now I was confronted by this enormous arachnid, and it started crawling towards me in a very slow, methodical way, which, some arachnids or spiders do. And I started feeling like prey for a second. My first impulse was to run away. But I decided, I don't know, maybe it was the mood that I was in, to instead project light at this creature. And I tried to mix in pity for it, as well as thinking about love for my family. And then projecting that towards it. And that stopped it dead. Because it actually acted once again. Now it acted like it was a cat on a hot tin roof. Because where that light touched it, it felt burned, and it recoiled into the corner, into a tiny little ball of hurting hate. And I just looked around one last time and decided that I thought that I had gotten what I had came for, and got ready to depart. But as I was departing, I got a message. It said, "Tell no one." Now, I'm not used to obeying these types of orders, so when I got back, I had typed out this whole experience down to the very, very details, which I wish I had here now. And as soon as I had finished typing, my computer blinked and everything was gone. And there was no way I was able to recover that information. I remember being so upset about that. And I never had a problem with that computer ever before, and I never had a problem with it again. It was just that particular story. And I kind of forgot about it, went on to do some other stuff, obviously. So, but now I started thinking about it again. I said, you know what? I'm going to share this. I'm not going to let some pathetic some pathetic entity curled up in some forgotten temple to tell me what to do. Now this wasn't just a history lesson. I hope that perhaps you got out of it that there's a number of ways to deal with these types of entities. You don't have to feel fear. And as a matter of fact, love and compassion, if you can summon it, is probably the best weapon because it's the one thing that they can't stand. If you've got Christian faith, you can use God or the name of Jesus, or if you have any other faiths, you can use that as well. But I think love and light are also very effective. And then, of course, you could always choose to leave too if you don't want to do any of that. But that was a story that I meant to get out. I wanted to share it. And I hope nothing goes wrong with this recording. If it does, it might be another 5 years before I share this. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening. And we'll see about getting back to the Astral Projection course again next week. If you liked this video, please hit the like button, share it with those of like mind, subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, hit that bell button, and I'd be glad to hear your comments or your questions about this or anything else associated with astral projection. And as always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.